Everybody, it's 10 o'clock. We'll get started. Welcome back. Om. Om. Prananantva Ganapatigum Havamahe Kavim Kavinamupamashravastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspatana Shunmannutibisi Dasadanam Prano Devi Saraswati Vaje Dinama Vidyavate Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha Om Saraswatyai Namaha Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Shuklam Baradaram Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasanna Vadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopashantaye Vagishadya Sumanasah Sarvarthanam Upakrame Yamnatva Kritakritya Syuhu Tam Namami Gajananam Vakratunda Mahakaya Koti Surya Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Om Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai Om Shanti 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 Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Brahma Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gagana Sadrusham Tattvamasya Laksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadhi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tam Namami Shruti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpada Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharya Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritav Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmiti Murti Veda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtaye Namaha Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahmavidvaram Sadgurum Brahmavidvaram Yasya Sannidhi Matrena Sarve Shishyascha Sevakaha Karmakshetre Pravartante Chinmayam Tam Namamyaham Chinmayam Tam Namamyaham. Hari Om, everybody. Welcome back after our summer break. Hope all of you had a good summer break. We will get started with our Mangala Charana Shloka from Viveka Choodamani, where we had left off. Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Sadgurum Pranatosmyaham. Before the break, we had just completed the topic of Pancha Kosha Viveka. We have covered selected verses on Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha. We elaborately looked at Vijnanamaya Kosha, or our intellectual sheath. In the last class, before the break, we focused on the innermost layer closest to Atma, called our Anandamaya Kosha. Let me see if I have that. Closest to the Atma is the bliss sheath, which is the innermost layer of our Panchakosha. So all of these discourses are on our YouTube channel, Chinmaya Ramanam. As I have mentioned before, these topics are very subtle. That doesn't mean we are not getting it. It requires repeated Shravanam. If you have missed any of these classes, view those videos and prepare yourself from the previous classes. Catch up, as they are all sequential in terms of their progression. So let's quickly recap Anandamaya Kosha, where we had left off. What does it consist of? It consists exclusively of our Ajnana, ignorance of the self, or our vasanas, or innate tendencies, before they are grossified into thoughts and actions. And when do we experience this bliss sheath? In our deep sleep state, Sushupti. Every night, in this deep sleep state, there is complete ignorance, no identity whatsoever, of both the world of objects as well as the self. Ajnana Nidra. Not Yoga Nidra, Ajnana Nidra. So we experience this state of bliss every night. We need to remember This is not the same as the infinite bliss. This is not Atma Ananda. This is Kosha Ananda. Sometimes we experience this kind of bliss even in the waking state or in the dream state. Like when we are absorbed in watching, let's say, a sunset or sunrise in the distant horizon, past the ocean, and your heart is filled with so much peace and joy. And when somebody, or even when somebody is engaged in their creative activity, and the happiness that is derived from all those are attributable to this Anandamaya Kosha. As I had mentioned before, this sheath, Anandamaya Kosha, is known by many names: bliss sheath, vasanas, ajnana, our ignorance, non-apprehension, causal body, state of deep sleep, sushupti, all are attributable to this kosha. And we also saw before the break that this Anandamaya kosha has what we call it as Taratamya, has three gradations of happiness: Priya, Moda, Pramoda. And Priya is what? Priya is the joy that we derive when we think of our favorite object or when we think of our favorite person. Moda is a level gradation higher, the joy we derive when we possess that object or when we meet with that person. And when the joy or experience, when we experience that joy from that object that we have possessed, that is pramoda. So, we will recap a few shlokas that we have selected, verses we had done on Anandamaya Kosha, just to kind of rekindle our memory. Let us go to verse number 207 in the text, those who are following. Ananda pratibimba chumbita tanuhu वृत्तिस्तमोजृम्भिता स्यादानन्दमयः प्रियादिगुणकः स्वेष्टार्थलाभोदयः पुण्यस्यानुभवे विभाति कृति नामानन्दरूप स्वयम् सर्वोनन्दति यत्र साधुतनुर्बृन्मात्र प्रयत्नं विना. आनंद प्रतिबिंब चुंबित तनुः वृत्तिस्तमोजृम्भिता. Now here we saw this beautiful poetic side of Bhagavan Shankaracharya ji. The bliss sheath is that light of reflection of the consciousness. Pratibimba chumbita tanu, as though kissed by that reflection of Atman because of its proximity, fully covered by the tamas. Syadanandamaya tamaha vijrumbita. And when do we experience this? Every day in our deep sleep, where our mind is covered with avidya or ajnana or dominated by tamoguna, the blissful light of the self reflected in it Priyadi Gunakaha. We already know what Priya, Moda, Pramoda means. Priya, Adi. There are various gradations of happiness, but there is no gradation in deep sleep. It is homogeneous. This bliss is experienced, as I mentioned, to lesser degrees in our waking and dream state. Sveshtartha labodaya. When our sensory pursuits are fulfilled, punyasya anubhave vibhati kriti namananda rupaha swayam. That experience of the bliss is always a result of our punya karmas of the past, good deeds of the past, meritorious deeds of the past, because evil deeds do not give us bliss. The results, what they bring only pain and suffering, dukkham, because they obstruct the flow of bliss coming from the sheep. Sarvo nandati yatra sadhu tanu brunmatraha. Everybody derives joy through the sheath prayatnam vina. Thank God for that. Without any effort, we derive this bliss, as though, Puja Guruji used to say, it's like enjoying a piece of good chocolate with the wrapper covered in it. That is the kind of bliss. Anandamaya Kosha. Then moving on to number 208. Anandamaya Koshasya Sushuptau Spurtirutkata. One more time. Anandamaya Koshasya Sushuptau Spurtirutkata. Swapna Jagara Yorishad Ishta Sandarshanadina. We have gone through this already. Just to recap, Anandamaya Koshasya Sushuptau Spurtirutkata. The Anandamaya Kosha is fully manifest when in our deep sleep state. See, the universal declaration of every sleeper. What do we say after a good night's sleep? We say it was full of joy. I did not know anything, we say. Anyone who goes into deep sleep, whether he is a king, whether he is a beggar, whether he is a saint, whether he is a sinner, experiences this intense bliss, coupled with total ignorance. Because we are not going to wake up a gnani tomorrow, like that. Same condition. Then we saw in verse number 209, how to negate this Anandamaya Kosha as not Atma. How is this not Atma? He gave us a dissection of how to think in a structured way. Naivayamanandamaya paratma sopadikatvat prakriter vikarat. Naivayamanandamaya paratma sopadhikatvat prakrutervikarat कार्यत्व हेतो सुकृत क्रियाया विकार संघात समाहितत्वात् नैवा नैवायमानन्दमयः परात्मा. This Anandamaya kosha cannot be considered as Atma, not ourself, because it is conditioned consciousness. It is a modification of our ajnana, our ignorance, primordial ignorance. It is an effect that is derived from the good karmas that we have done in our past. He gave us a few reasons, one by one. Sopadikatvat. Anandamaya kosha is conditioned consciousness because it is a upadhi. It is an adjunct. Because there are gradations of happiness, priya, moda, pramoda. They are all conditioned. Why are they conditioned? Their existence depends on the perception. We need to perceive an object. Then we need to possess that object. And then we need to enjoy that desired object to receive this gradation of happiness. Meaning, there are many external factors. There are many dependencies in order to derive that happiness. The Upanishads or Shruti Pramana says, bliss or the self, Atmananda, is not dependent on any external factor. It is unconditioned consciousness. It is unlimited consciousness. It is permanent happiness. Point number two was Prakrutehe Vikarat. Anandamaya Kosha is a modification of the ignorance. It is evident from our deep sleep experience. Everyone has a memory only upon waking. And we say, I did not know anything. I slept like a log of wood. And Upanishads call Atma as Nirvikari, without any modification. It is the nature of absolute knowledge. Therefore, Anandamaya Kosha is not Atma. We saw that. Karyatva heto sukrita kriyaya. We know Anandamaya Kosha is an effect of the good deeds of our past. The experiences of Anandamaya Kosha are effects of the results of our punya karma. So it has a beginning, it has an end. It has an adi, it has an anta. Upanishads say Atmananda is permanent. There is no beginning, no end. Ananta. Then point number 4, he said, Vikara Sangata Samahitatvat. Anandamaya Kosha is associated with other matter envelopments. What are they? Vijnanamaya Kosha is there inside it. Manomaya Kosha is there. Pranamaya Kosha is there. Annamaya Kosha is there. All these are preceding layers. They are all modifications of the same Anatma. and therefore cannot be Atma. So he gave us this direction. So with this we concluded prior to the break the answer to the seventh question asked by the student. Tayor vivekaha katham. How to differentiate between Atma and Anatma. But excuse me, sir, we just had a break. I don't even remember those 7 questions now. So, let us chant our verse number 49 to help us remember those 7 questions asked by the student. Ko nama bandhaha kathamesha agataha katam pratisthasya katam vimokshaha ko savanatma paramah ka atma tayor vivekah kathametadutchatam. So first we studied what is Anatma. As a part of that, we studied the Sharira Traya Viveka, the Stula Sharira, the gross body, the Sukshma Sharira, the subtle body, Karana Sharira, the causal body. Then we touched on what is the nature of Atma briefly. We explored what are the causes of bondage, bandhana, how to free ourselves from bondage. Then we covered Gunatraya Viveka, 3 gunas, Sattva, Rajas and Tamo guna. Then we covered Avastatraya Viveka before starting the Panchakosha Viveka. That brings us to today's topic. When we say in Vedanta, we also need to remember one thing. Self is the subtlest, innermost. Let me see if I can pull that chart again. When we say self is the innermost, the core of our personality, all this, it may lead us to think that self is this minute thing hidden inside all these 5 sheets. And also we need to remember when we say vital air sheath or pranamaya kosha is within the foot sheath. In Vedanta, we need to understand the inner one is subtler than the outer. It is called as Niyama Niyamika Sambandha. The subtler controls the grosser. Some of you are automotive engineers. We have this logic control in powertrain control module or cluster control module, all these body modules we say. So it controls the outer functions. Similarly, the subtler controls the grosser. The self is the Atma is the subtlest and controls all the layers. So the all-pervasive nature of the Atma. For example, the mental sheath, Manomaya Kosha, is more pervasive than the vital air sheath because our fields of knowledge goes beyond the physical comprehension. I hope you're catching it. Same way, intellectual sheath is much subtler than the mental sheath, because our ventures go beyond into the realms of unknown areas of our thought. Little subtle, but I hope you caught that. So we studied these Atma Lakshanas briefly before in that question, Paramaha ka Atma, and understood there are Swarupa Lakshana that are pointed out, direct pointers. Then we went through Tatastha Lakshana. We studied in Avastatraya Viveka, in that Atman as Sakshi Swarupa, the one who is the witness principle in the waking, in the dream, and in our deep sleep states. And we negated how in each state something else is not there. In fact, as a group, we studied an entire text called Druk Drushya Viveka on that very topic of Sakshi, witness. Now, how do we transcend these 5 sheets? Beyond the 5 sheets is Om, our Atman, symbolized by Om, the core of our personality. The 5 sheets are Pancha Koshas. You can take it as though it is a dress worn by the Atma, self, and it is different from the wearer. So with that, let us go into our next topic. And those who are following in the text, let us go to verse number 210. Panchanapi koshanam nishedhe yuktitashrutehe panchanapi koshanam nishedhe yuktitashrutehe तन्निषेधावधि साक्षी बोधरूपो अवशिष्यते तन्निषेधावधि साक्षी बोधरूपो अवशिष्यते. One more time together. पंचानामपि कोशानां निषेधे युक्तितश्रुतेः तन्निषेधावधि साक्षी बोधरूपो avashishyate. So when the 5 sheets have been negated by using yukti, logic, and using the Shruti Pramana, using the reference of our Upanishads. Shruti is Vedas and Upanishads are at the end of our Vedas. What remains is the witness principle. What remains is the substratum, the knowledge absolute, the Atman. We have already done this exercise. We have done this vichara, a deep inquiry as to the process of negation. The neti approach, as prescribed by the Upanishads, Taittiriya Upanishad. The Upanishadic methodology of describing the self as not this, not this. But there is a reason why that methodology is prescribed. Because it is Atindriya Vishaya. The subject matter cannot be objective. It cannot be perceived by our senses. Vachama gochara. It is beyond verbal description. Yet they have made a beautiful attempt to point to that direction. So just like how we went through at the end of each of these koshas as we understood why it is not Atma, we negated it. Now we understood why that sequence was pointed out. Panchanam api koshanam nishedhe yuktita shrutehe. Here Bhagavan Shankaracharya ji is prescribing a three-step process. First, we need Shruti Pramana, Shruti. We need a good understanding of the knowledge of the self, our true nature, of what is Atma. That is why we went so many classes from the scriptures. How it is pointed out in the Upanishads. Then we need logical reasoning called Yukti. This way, it is not some cockamania we are talking about. It is not some pie in the sky. This gives us intellectual conviction. But finally, we have to experience the self. That is Anubhuti. Shruti, Yukti, leading us to Anubhuti. Because the scriptures are the experiences of the sages, our rishis. But this realization has to be our own. This is the individual effort. In the language of Upadesha Sara, Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi says, Ahaminashabhat ahamahantaya spurati hrutsvayam paramapurnasat idamaham padabhikyamanvaham ahamilinake vyalaya sattaya vigrahendriya pranadhitamah nahameka sat tajjadam yasa. Go back to Upadesha Sara for that good reference. Vigrahendriya, this body, mind, intellect, all are anatma. And what remains is that culminating point of process, is that witness principle. What remains is that substratum, that knowledge absolute, the Atman. Tannishedhavadi sakshi, bodharupo avashishyate. When we do that nishedha through that neti approach, not this, not this, and we have done this inquiry, vichara, at each phase, each step of the way in this text, as to how to negate each of the koshas, as to why it is not Atma. with the help of Shruti Pramana, Shruti, with the help of Yukti, and at the very end of the process of negation in our meditation, what remains is that eternal witness, that Sakshi Swarupa, our eternal self. This witness is of the nature of pure consciousness, our eternal blissful nature. Now, moving to verse number 211. Now he gives us what is that we need to meditate on. Yo yamatma swayam jyotihi panchakosha vilakshanaha. Yo yamatma swayam jyotihi panchakosha vilakshanaha. Avasthatraya sakshi san निर्विकारो निरंजन अवस्थात्रय साक्षी सन् निर्विकारो निरंजनः सदानंदः सविज्ञेयः स्वात्मत्वेन विपश्चिता. One more time together. यो यमात्मा स्वयं ज्योतिः पंचकोश विलक्षणः अवस्थात्रय साक्षी सन् निर्विकारो निरंजनः सदानंदः सविज्ञेयः स्वात्मत्वेन विपश्चिता. This Atman, he says, needs to be realized by this Vipaschita, this wise man. As his own self. Which Atma? That self-effulgent Atma. Swayam Jyoti. Here, we can use sun as an example. Just to give an example, how to see the sun. In order to see the sun outside, especially here in Arizona, we don't need a torchlight because sun is swata siddha, self-evident. Similarly, our self is self-effulgent, swayam jyotihi. Jyotisham jyotihi. We have a jyoti in our class also. The light of lights. It is swayam prakasha. No other source of light is needed to illuminate. That brings us to a beautiful reference from Kathopanishad. We say that when we do the Arti, na tatra suryo bhati na chandra tarakam nema vidyuto bhanti kuto yamagnihi tameva bhantamanubhati sarvam tasya bhasa sarvamidam vibhati. Kathopanishad, second worldly. So this self, this Atma is Pancha Kosha Vilakshana. It is distinct from the five sheets. Now he is pointing it in that direction. Why we studied Pancha Kosha Viveka? He is Avastatraya Sakshi. The witness principle In where? The three states of my existence. Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti. Waking, dream and deep sleep states. The one who witnesses, and it is there in all three states of my existence. We have done this vichara in Avastatraya Viveka. Then Upanishad points and says, self is, Atma is nirvikari. It is changeless, meaning it does not undergo any modifications. Niranjanaha, untainted, eternal bliss, everlasting bliss. Sadananda. This Atma needs to be realized. Not as an object, but Vigneyaha. Let me pull that shloka also so that you can follow along. Vigneyaha Swatmatvena. We have gone through this through the meditative verses of Viveka Choodamani in our Atma Shatkam, Nirvana Shatkam in our meditation classes. This is Chidananda Rupaha Shivoham Shivoham. Actually, we should chant this verse one more time, just to drive that point. Yo yamatma swayam jyotih panchakosha vilakshanah अवस्थात्रय साक्षी सन् निर्विकारो निरञ्जनः सदानन्दः स विज्ञेयः स्वात्मत्वेन विपश्चिता. This is our destination. Now, Shishya, the disciple, now comes back with an extraordinary question, extremely meaningful question. When we go to verse number 212. Shishya uvacha mityatvena nishiddheshu kosheshveteshu panchasu sarva bhavam vina kinchit na pashyam yatra he guro विज्ञेयं किमु वस्त्वस्ते स्वात्मनात्र विपश्चिता. Now Shishya is asking, hey Guru, O Master, he asks an extremely meaningful question. This question asked by the disciple at this time as though asked on all our behalf. The disciple asked, excuse me, sir, after I negated all of the 5 sheets as unreal, Mithya, I find nothing. Mithyatvena nishiddeshu posheteshu panchasu sarva abhavam. I see that nothingness. There is emptiness. What entity is left with which this wise man should know his self? This is where nihilists of the Buddhism, that is where they reach. This is the Shunyavada proposed by the Buddhists. Pure non-existence as the ultimate truth. I hope you're paying attention. For that, Bhagavan Shankaracharya ji comes back, number 213. Shri Gururuvacha Satyamuktam Tvaya Vidvan Nipunosi Vicharane. Shri Gururuvacha Satyamuktam Tvaya Vidvan Nipunosi Vicharane. Ahamadivikaraste Tadabhavo Yamapyatha. Satyamuktam Tvaya Vidvan. Vidwan, he calls him. He is no more a student. You have spoken correctly. You have spoken beautifully. Nipunosi Vicharane. You are an expert in your deep inquiry. I am very pleased with you. Your thinking is right. Your reasoning, your discrimination. He is appreciating the intelligent question asked by the disciple. He clarifies that beginning from ego down to our gross body, everything is a modification. When these anatma are negated, what remains is Atman, which is the basis of negation. Meaning, when everything is negated, the knower of who is the knower of this absence that remains unnegated? That is the question to ponder upon, meditate upon. We will stop here for this week. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhave. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrutyorma Amrutam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Namadav Purnamidam Purnam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om Tat Sat. May all be happy. May all be healthy. May all see that auspiciousness. May none suffer. Om peace, peace, peace. With that, I'll open it up for our interactive session. Please stay back if you can, and I'd like to meet with all of you.